Hi, my name is Kristen, and today we're going to be talking about psychological factors in adults. As I stated, my target population is adults. I decided to go with this because as an athletic trainer, I have the opportunity to work with a wide variety of clients. Um, and it has been shown that only 20% of adults currently meet the physical activity guidelines of 150 minutes per week. And I just found this like crazy. So, promoting physical activity, although almost everybody knows of the benefits, there's still a deficit there. And I think it's important to understand the psychological reasonings behind this. Previous research is extremely important when dealing with clientele. So I'm going to discuss 3 research articles that I found particularly interesting and give some insights in how to deal with clients. So the first one is Anderson. It researched church-going adults and evaluated several variables, including social support, self-efficacy, outcome expectations, and self-regulation in regard to physical activity. They found that of those variables, social support, self-efficacy, and self-regulation were positive indicators of physical activity, with self-regulation being the strongest social cognitive, having the strongest effect on physical activity levels in individuals. This helps us realize that when suggesting interventions focusing on increasing physical activity levels, it'd be important to focus on self-regulation and increasing physical activities by incorporating it into our daily life, and as well as the importance of goal setting. So the next article is by Jennings and colleague. They examined underactive adults and the effect on goal setting in those adults. They found that longer session duration goals were associated with an increase in physical activity at 6 months when compared to shorter session duration goals. So they considered shorter session at about 10 minutes, with longer session at about 30 minutes. Um, so this kind of highlights that while we should be incorporating physical activity into our daily lives, as the previous study said, it's also important to set reasonable but ambitious goals. So something that we actually have to work towards is important for adults. And the last study examined the effects of exercise identity and motivation in adults, and they found that individuals with strong exercise identity had higher levels of motivation and were more likely to participate in physical activity due to the enjoyment in it. So this um, allows practitioners and should educate us that when focusing on that change, increasing physical activity levels, we should focus on increasing an individual's exercise identity. So focusing on the enjoyment aspects of it and the personal benefits, in order to help increase their motivation. So there are several environmental impacts that can affect an individual's levels of physical activity. The first being physical environment. So as you can see, that neighborhood in the picture may not be the best at fostering physical activity, whereas higher class neighborhoods with parks and with more equipment may foster a higher level of physical activity, because safety in a neighborhood is a concern for some with engaging in physical activity. Although it is a concern, one study by Guthier and college found that Canadians are active regardless of environment, and they studied the difference between rural and urban environments and really found no difference in physical activity levels, which is kind of intriguing. The next is a person's social environment. So this is huge for a person. Social support is one of the most important predictors of physical activity. However, social support was found to be more important in fostering physical activity in men than it was for women, which is, again, kind of interesting. Although it's important for both, maybe more motivating for men than it is for women. And the next one we're going to talk about is a cultural impact or the cultural environment. So this graph shows the average daily steps in countries around the world. And the article that it's attached to demonstrated that there's a worldwide physical activity deficit. So it's not just Americans that aren't engaging in physical activity enough. It's a worldwide problem. However, there are increased physical activity levels in cultures and countries that put an emphasis on it. So those European countries do see higher levels of physical activity due to the emphasis and the promotion of it in that culture. So the next thing we're going to talk about is barriers. Everybody can think of a barrier towards physical activity. There are so many. A few I have listed are time restraints, financial burdens, priorities, social support, and safety concerns. So the most popular by far is the lack of time. And that's a perceived barrier. Like, we make the time for things that we enjoy. So if we enjoy exercise, we make it a priority. So that kind of leads us into priorities. One study showed that young parents, their priorities shift. So if they were previously extremely physically active, since that child is their new priority, they're now less physically active. So where your priorities lie. Financial burdens is another common thing. I don't have the money for the gym, or I can't afford the equipment, or stuff like that. But often people don't realize that it's free to go for a walk outside. They may not want to go walking outside. It would be their reply. It could be a safety concern. It could be a social support. Oh, I don't have anybody to go walking with. I'm in a bad neighborhood. The barriers are limitless, and as healthcare providers, it's our responsibility to kind of understand these potential barriers and do our best to foster an environment and help individuals overcome these barriers. So I have 4 factors that I'm going to discuss that affect health and performance. The first being social support. Like I said earlier, it's extremely important for individuals. And studies have shown, like I said earlier, it may be more effective in males than in females. In regards to who provides this social support, studies have shown that personal trainers may provide a unique form of social support in that they're knowledgeable in the activity, they provide a good example, and they're there with you. Another form of social support may be social media. It can be argued that social media is making us more sedentary, but on the flip side, it may help foster physical activity. I know for myself, I do challenges through social media with my family, and it helps us be more accountable and obtain encouragement, even though we may not be able to work out with each other physically. So the next one is environment. This can be a barrier for some due to safety concerns. And it has been shown that environmental supports are positive contributors to physical activity. So those like pull-up bars at the park, those encourage physical activity. And small changes, like I said in the previous research, um, such as parking further from the store and walking the stairs instead of taking the elevator. Those small changes, you can do those regardless of environment. The grocery store is generally a safe place. And those small changes also would increase an individual's self-regulation as well. The next one is lack of time. Like I said, it's the most common barrier. It's the thing I hear from clients most often. Um, a few suggestions to combat this would be a reframing or a remodeling to reduce the quote cognitive error of that lack of time. So making physical activity a priority and reframing it as something positive or something that is not time consuming. It can be done in 10 minutes. That's the amount of time it takes you to, I don't know, eat lunch um, and stuff like that. So the importance of goal setting, focusing on those short bouts, those incorporating into daily activities. So 10 minutes of physical activity can promote self-efficacy. Walking to the grocery store instead of driving there can increase self-regulation and stuff like that to help combat the perceived lack of time. The next one is motivation. Motivation is hard to come by for some, but for others it comes easier. So as practitioners, it's important to focus and foster the intrinsic motivation. So making an activity fun and enjoyable so that they increase their exercise identity and want to come back to that physical activity, whatever it may be. So the last few things we have is my mission statement, which I put as Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him and he will make your paths straight. This is kind of my mission statement for life. I am trusting him and allowing him to take me where I am supposed to be with life and with my career. And I think so far it's worked out. And yeah, so what I've learned, there are a lot of complex psychological and physical factors that are important to consider when helping individuals begin a physical activity program. We're all human. We all have those reasons, whatever it may be. And it's important to recognize those when dealing with clients and engage with them on a personal level. And I think it would help foster the enjoyment aspect for both parties involved. So it's important to remember that we're all human. And again, everybody has a different situation, and consistently learning from others as well. So that's all I have. Lots of references. I know I spoke a lot, didn't have a lot on my slides, but hopefully that made sense, and thanks.